So those of us who are 35 and over, why in the hell are we letting those under 35, and especially those under 30, terrorize our women, terrorize our teenagers? The black community is under a martial law by Negroes, young Negroes, and black men, black churches aren't doing a damn thing about it. Now, I totally support buying low value homes and turning them into high value. I have no problem with that. Go back into the hood and get you one of these sheriff sale homes and buy it and then fix it up. But that's not what our people are thinking about when they thinking of buying a home. They're thinking of running to some white suburb somewhere or some gentrified neighborhood and taking out a mortgage on a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 home. Let me ask you a question, Sister Octavia, just to dig into that a little deeper. With the stop snitching movement, I understand your sentiment. Obviously, there is a devaluation on life if you're not allowed to confess as to who actually, or report who actually committed the crime. So I definitely get the sentiment. Here's my concern. This is my biggest concern for the community if we were to go from a stop snitching code to a let's tell on everybody code. And for the sake of my remarks, I'm speaking specifically of unjustified homicides. I'm speaking specifically of unjustified senseless homicides, not any other crimes, but unjustified senseless homicides. In particular, my concern for people who start to tell or inform on the murderers in our community, my concern is the risk to their life, because from what I've seen and what I've heard, when you snitch on a killer, that killer's attorney has a right to know who you are. And if that killer's attorney has a right to know who you are, that killer will know who you are. And so often, and I'm sure you've heard of this as well, being in that Chi-Town area, a lot of witnesses are killed. And so my concern for people who come forward reporting black murderers to the white power structure is how safe will their lives be? It doesn't make sense for two people to die and the person responsible for the initial murder still not be brought to justice. So with that being said, I think to reverse the stop snitching campaign, and I'm not a fan of it. I think it is reactionary and ridiculous. I'm not a fan of it, but I don't see that as a solution. And I'm going to have you respond in a minute. And the reason I don't see it as a solution is I am of the opinion any solution that involves white people is not a solution at all. So if we have to tell the police, then that is not a solution because it involves our oppressor. And our oppressor, as a rule, in my opinion, cannot, by definition, be involved in our solutions. What we need to find out, and I'm not disagreeing with you, Goddess Octavia, but what we need to find out is why are black men, and when I say black men, I'm specifically speaking of 35 and over. Specifically, it can be younger than that, but I'm specifically speaking of 35 and older because at that age, once you hit 35, your youth is over. It's time to get serious about life. So those of us who are 35 and over, why in the hell are we letting those under 35, and especially those under 30, terrorize our women, terrorize our neighborhoods, terrorize our youth, terrorize our teenagers? The black community is under a martial law by Negroes, young Negroes, and black men, black churches, black organizations, black fraternities, black community-based organizations aren't doing a damn thing about it. The fake woke hotep conscious community isn't doing a damn thing about it. So for me, Octavia, even if we were to go to a let's inform on the killers, which, as I've said, I'm concerned about that because it leads to more death because the police could care less. The criminal justice system could care less about protecting the life of a black person who wants to inform, because they don't value our lives at all, which is why so many black witnesses end up being murdered. But to me, that's a Band-Aid. I'm not saying it's not one we don't need to entertain, but it's a Band-Aid. A solution would be for black men to step the hell up and stop letting these young bulls, as we say here in Philadelphia, stop letting these young bulls terrorize our damn community.
What makes us look bad.
Now, talk to me about these rappers, brother Noma, because nobody wants to hold the hip hop. The hip hop community is more untouchable than the black church. The hip hop community is more, we keep talking about these rappers, all this money they making, doing very little for the community. And I'm not talking about dedicating no playground, giving out some t-shirts, giving out some sneakers. I'm not talking about that, because that's not solutions. They are making millions of dollars. Now, not all of them are wealthy. We understand that. But those who are doing well, they're making all this money for the white power structure, all this money for themselves, and they're pushing a steady diet of everything we don't need to do. Everything black folks don't need to do. I mean, is it possible for us to hold them accountable? Or are the rappers the new saints in the black community, meaning they are untouchable? I'll tell you why they kill, brother Noma. I'll tell you why they kill. The reason why the black man has to kill his enemy is taking the life of a black man is the most powerful thing he will ever experience, because he will never be allowed to experience productive, positive, progressive power. You see, when you're not used to having power, you look for a way to experience it, because controlling your environment is part of being a man. And since the black man is so economically and politically devastated and castrated, the reason we react in excess of what is necessary when we are at odds with one another is because the taking of the life is one of the most profound acts of power. To take someone's right to breathe away from them is one of the most powerful things you can do. And since we're not allowed to exercise power in so many other acceptable avenues in society, that's why we take the life. It's like getting high. It's like, what is the ultimate rush I can get? What is the best rush of power I can experience as an oppressed black male in America? And that greatest rush of power is to take the life of a black man, because he's the only life you can take and possibly get away with it. Now, I'm not against nobody buying a house. I'm not against nobody owning a home. I understand it can be a path to wealth building. I get it. I understand the wealth gap between black folks and white folks right now has a lot to do with the lack of home ownership we had the past 30 years. But here's my concern. When people say every black person need to buy a house, here's my concern. It almost reminds me of when they say every black kid need to go to college. The problem with telling everybody to buy a house and telling everybody to go to college is these are often investments that so many of our brothers and sisters do not reap a benefit from. How many of us know folks who took out a 30-year mortgage on a house and got hit with the variable interest rate and they wasn't able to pay it off? I mean, look at gentrification right now. Gentrification is taking homes back from black folks who were damn near done paying them off, or were completely done paying them off but couldn't afford the property tax. So although I admit and I submit that home ownership is still a potential solution for individuals, it can also be a trap, just like going to college can be a trap if you don't major in something that's economically relevant and you end up with a $250,000 student loan and you're not even able to pay it back. So it can work for individuals. But as a community solution, telling people to go to college and buy houses as a superficial solution, I don't know if that is necessarily what we should do. What's your opinion, Brother A?
So yeah, I'm an advocate for purchasing a home. So if that's the question,
Well, it wasn't the question per se. It's more specific than that. And the specific question is that a message, a universal message that we want to push to every black person? Go and buy a home. Because again, as I said, there will be a lot of unscrupulous realtors and banks who would love that message, because they'll end up having our people because a lot of our people in these 30-year mortgages, I got a big problem with a 30-year mortgage, a very big problem with a 30-year mortgage, because a lot of our people might not even be around to finish paying it off. You see, and then with the gentrification going on and the spiking in the property tax then damn near made it impossible to own a home anyway. Because even when you get the deed, you still got to pay the government in order to stay in there. I'm not against people buying homes, but I don't know if should it be an automatic for every single person to buy a home? Should it be an automatic for every single person to go to college?
To own a home nowadays for black folk. I need the answer to
That's my question. That is my question. Unless you buy you a nice fixer-upper and put it in where you clearly own it, there's no mortgage. That's different. Now, I totally support buying low-value homes and turning them into high-value. I have no problem with that. Now, if we push that message, I'm all for it. Go back into the hood and get you one of these sheriff sale homes and buy it and then fix it up. I have no problem with that. But that's not what our people are thinking about when they're thinking of buying a home. They're thinking of running to some white suburb somewhere or some gentrified neighborhood and taking out a mortgage on a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 home. A couple folks said that we should be buying property but not homes. Somebody said a multi-unit property where you can live on one, rent the other out, and that way your tenants are paying off your mortgage for you. I can appreciate that. And then someone else said, if you're going to buy a home, use the home as a business so you can write off some of the mortgage as a tax expense. I can live with that. So I think, and I want your response, and then I'm going to get you in here, Bam, Tefa, and Noma. I think then we have to get more creative with how we buy these homes and more creative with how we use these homes. Because when I look at the multi-unit properties that somebody mentioned, I can see that working out. And when I look at folks saying, buy the home, but use it as a business. And then other folks even said, put your home down as being owned by your LLC. So now the home is exclusively listed as a business property, and you'll be able to write off more with your home being a business property as opposed to being a residence. It's okay for us. This is a solution session. We don't have to all agree on everything. The point is we're talking about it. But I do want to say this. Because we are so selfish as a people, you get individuals who say, it worked for me. Just because it worked for you does not mean it's a solution for everybody. So don't say because I went to college and it worked for me. That don't mean it's going to work for everybody else. You bought a house. It worked for you. We're talking about solutions for the community. Let's not be selfish, okay? Drug dealing has worked for some people, and they were able to drug deal for 20 years, get out of the game, flip that money into a business. They never went to jail, and they're comfortable right now. But is that going to work for every drug dealer? Please stop thinking about yourself. This conversation is about us. It is about we. It is not about you. And too many of you are only thinking about your damn selves. I don't care what worked for you. We're talking about what is best for the people.